What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Grady and I listen to country music and whatever else I want to. And on today's video, we're doing an album roundup of all the albums in the last few months that I've listened to and just saying which ones clicked with me, which ones didn't. And it was inspired by this new Luke Combs EP, which I'm really eager to talk about. But first, before we do that, I want to say a shout out to the sponsor of today's video. It's the Ridge Wallet. These guys have been sponsoring the channel. They're our very first sponsor, and they make these awesome front pocket wallets. They are super slim, just about the size of a credit card. They have a money clip on the back, and they're these aluminum minimalist wallets, so they're not clumping up your pants with a big old bulky leather wallet. They hold all your cards. You can kind of hit up that little notch and take your cards out that way. Carry a little bit of cash or whatever, but most of the stuff you're carrying in your wallet, you don't need to be carrying, and the Ridge helps you not do that. You can get 10% off your first order using the promo code Grady, and that's linked in the description down below. I'm just going to start with the album that I heard the most recently and then go backwards from there. I'm not really sure what to do with reviews on this channel. They don't actually do that well, and they're a lot of work. And in some ways, I wonder if they would be better suited to be covered on the podcast. And yes, I launched a podcast. I should say that up front. I have a podcast now. It's called Free Country with Grady Smith. It's linked down in the description down below. But that's going to be a great place to kind of cover any new releases that are happening if I don't have a dedicated video about them. But in this case, I'm just going to talk about a bunch of albums today, and they're all going to be timestamped. Just look for the pinned comment. The first one we're going to talk about is Luke Combs' The Prequel EP.
Don't get me wrong, I like a bobber on the water.
This is 5 songs, and guys, it's freaking great. I think this is like major step up from his debut record, and I think it has just all great songs on it. Seriously, this is like a 5 for 5 kind of album. You get different shades of Luke Combs, and yet I feel like it's really sonically cohesive. 3 of these are co-written with a guy named Ray Fulcher, who now I've got my eye on because I'm like, wow, I like your writing style. Beer Never Broke My Heart, great song. Refrigerator Door is literally about a refrigerator door, about the pictures and recipes and the life that is captured just by looking at a refrigerator door. Love the imagery of that song and how simple it is. Even Though I'm Leaving, to me, is the lyrical standout of this whole bunch of songs, and it has a beautiful mandolin kind of going through it. Yeah, instrumentally, this record's awesome. But Even Though I'm Leaving is a song about a father and son and going off to war and a father dying and all these moments where they're separating but they still have each other. It tugs on the heartstrings. Lovin' on You is a big old Brooks and Dunnish, fun, summer, happy song where he just wants to be loving on her. And Moon Over Mexico is another gorgeous track. I think that this album, to me, I think the reason everyone is so enthused by Luke Combs isn't because he is some warrior that is fighting for the soul of country music only with tradition, and he's not trying to say F the system. To me, he's just this great middle road where you've got some of the traditional instrumentation of country music and you've got the modern fresh production, and it's that simple. That's all I feel like any of us really want. We're so polarized, and people are like, no, it has to be Sturgill, or they're like, screw you, man, Florida Georgia Line is the future, country music's gotta evolve. And it's just like, nah, you can do both, okay? You can do both. And I feel like Luke Combs represents that, and the Prequel EP is just 5 great songs. Very, very impressed with it. It's broad because it's a big old mainstream release. I think he's gonna do more of these EPs, but this is a solid 5 tracks. So I'm gonna give this like 8 out of 10. Then we've got Thomas Rhett's Center Point Road.
Don't even want the attention, but yeah, that's all that she's getting.
Now this is a big album. Thomas Rhett has become a huge superstar, and he's playing big shows as the headliner now. But I don't really get him. Thomas Rhett to me is so nothing always. I mean, his music is fine. It's just very, very pop. It's very Bruno Mars inspired, and trying to fuse it with country just leads you somewhere into a kind of very vanilla pop zone. And then vocally, nothing very special. And I don't mean that in a shady way. I'm not saying he can't sing. It's just he doesn't have a Stapleton voice. He doesn't have a really memorable, weird voice like Iris DeMen or John Prine or something. And then so you would hope that the lyrics are really what are pushing the narrative here. But they're not. I just don't get why he is so popular. But I guess it's just like He is handsome and aspirational, and people love him and his wife, and I kind of wonder if they're planning like a Chip and Joanna Gaines Nashville version takeover kind of thing, because they are very good at managing sort of the celebrity status of their relationship. I actually think the songs on Centerpoint Road that are the best are the ones that are about her. Maybe I am buying into the marketing of it, or maybe, look, they just really freaking love each other, and that works. I think Notice is a really great song where he's kind of, it's way too poppy for my taste, but he's kind of observing her, the little things he notices that she does. I think Dream You Never Had is similar to that, but I would say in both cases, the writing is just a little too Hallmark card-ish, a lot too broad. We don't get enough sort of unique, funny, weird, incisive details. It's all like the way you blush when you drink red wine, or the way that you love looking at sunsets. And you're like, well, that doesn't feel that specific to one person. Centerpoint Road, the title track, the collaboration with Kelsey Ballerini, is a great example of this kind of lack of specificity. He's singing theoretically about this road that reminds him of his hometown, but we get these phrases of like, we didn't worry about nothing, we had it all. Being the fastest was something, running the halls, breaking the law, and life was a party. Who you are and who you're with, drinking till your head was sorry and dancing for the hell of it. I feel like this is reminding me of that Patrick Stump song, This City, where he says, this city is my city and I love it. And you're like, but what city? I want to hear some detail that actually takes me back, not just kind of generic youth. That doesn't feel as anthemic as the song is trying to sound to me. All the kind of funky disco vibes on this album don't work to me. Don't Threaten Me with a Good Time, the song with Little Big Town, I just find very annoying. Same with Don't Stop Driving, kind of feels like a track from Glee. And so there's a lot on this album I don't like, and I think it's too long, and I think it's sonically all over the place. Very Hot Summer, no. It's actually called VHS, which stands for Very Hot Summer. That's a big no from me. But there are some things that I do like on this album. I do like the song Sand. I think that is actually quite a jam and a very fun beachy track. Almost is by far my favorite track here. I think it's thematic, it feels true to his life experience. It really lyrically is a solid song of the things that he almost got but didn't, and the ways that those things shaped him. So That Old Truck, Sand, Almost. Remember You Young, it's fine. But there's some okay songs on here, but in general, it's too big, too sprawling, too pop. And that's his thing, and it works for him. So more power to him. I don't like hating albums, even though people think I do, but I would just give this like a 4 out of 10. I also want to talk about Ian Noyes' Between the Country.
They got the farmhouse burning, watched it burn to the ground.
Ian Noyes is a guy that I've been hearing about. He's kind of like the hot new darling on the indie country scene, and I get it. He's really good. He's a guy that comes from Kentucky. He's got long hair. He's a long-haired country boy. And what the heck is out in the water in Kentucky? Because they've now given us Sturgill and Childers and Stapleton and now Ian Noyes. Ian Noyes has this album. It's produced by Dave Cobb, and I really like how Dave Cobb produces individual singer-songwriters. Keep that in mind for later in the video. But this album is another beautiful record coming out of Appalachia. His sound really reminds me of Bob Dylan or Townes Van Zandt, and there's a couple songs on this record that I think are absolutely stunning. I think Barber's song is incredible. I think If Today Doesn't Do Me In is truly gorgeous. I think Meth Head is a song sort of looking at someone that's addicted with just frustration and anger, and I think we were hearing a lot of the kind of, there's a certain pain in his music and in his melodies coming out of this sort of poor Kentucky experience. And I think the album's just great. It has a very almost sort of sun-soaked 60s vibe to me, and maybe not 60s, maybe 60s. We'll go with it. But I really am stunned by it. I need to keep giving it some more listens to really finish taking it in, but freaking gorgeous. So I'll say like a 8.5 out of 10. I like that stuff. I am like your standard pretentious critic type that likes a lot of the stuff that the other critics do. Then let's talk about the new record from Randy Rogers' band, Hellbent.
Daddy rolled through a four-way, Mama singing to a hymnal.
So Randy Rogers Band is a huge act out of Texas, if you hadn't heard of them. They are one of the big kind of names out in the red dirt scene, along with Cody Johnson, along with Turnpike Troubadours, Co Wetzel. I see all you Co Wetzel fans. One day I'll cover him somehow. But this album, they are working with Dave Cobb. They're recorded this with him, and I will say that my biggest issue with the album is actually the production. I feel like I don't love how Dave Cobb produces bands. It just feels everything's a little dampened. Everything is almost on... It feels like the volume has been turned down across this record, and it's a shame because there's real hooks here. Real hooks. I mean, my favorite stretch on the record is starting at track 5, Hell Bent on a Heartache, You, Me, and a Bottle, We Never Made It to Mexico, Crazy People. I love those 4 songs. I also love Wine and a Coffee Cup. I think that the fiddle on this record is so gorgeous, and I just want it to sing. I want it to scream off of the tracks, but it just feels kind of layered low in the mix, and so I feel like we're being deprived of the grooves that this record should have. Now that said, I think Hell Bent on a Heartache is an absolutely amazing song. I think it's actually a Gary Clark cover, but I adore it. And I think Crazy People, which is their single, is also a really great hook. So overall, I really like the songs here, and I like the songwriting. I like kind of he's a great songwriter. He has a certain humor and wit to him, and when you hear that on a song like Crazy People, just describing all of these types of people where he lives as crazy. But and Wine in a Coffee Cup is an excellent lyric, kind of. I mean, you get the whole song right there in that title, Wine in a Coffee Cup. Ain't a good look. It's about alcoholism. So I think that there's good lyrics, there's good melodies, but the way it's captured really prevented me from getting into this record, and that was a shame. So I'd give it maybe like a 6 out of 10. Next up is Reba McEntire's Stronger Than the Truth.
I never dreamed of wanting more.
Now, this is a good record. This is a good country record. I mean, this sounds real country. Like when your friends that make fun of you for listening to country music are like, I don't like country, it's so like creaky and old sounding. Yeah, this is the kind of record they're talking about, and that's why I freaking love it. And I love that Reba, after kind of trying to grasp onto radio relevance and trying to be a little bit poppier and singing like a Kelly Clarkson cover a few years ago, I love that she just went the other way and made something super country, because this record's good. I love Tammy Wynette, Kind of Pain, Storm in a Shot Glass. My favorite track on this record is called Cactus in a Coffee Can, and it's a story about sitting beside a woman on a plane that is telling her the story of her mother abandoning her. And it's kind of odd. You're like, wow, this is such a weird story song, but that's something that's missing, that kind of quirk from a lot of country records, certainly from something like Center Point Road. The Clown is a great song. Know You in Oklahoma is a fiddly-diddly little tell-off. The album maybe feels a little too old school, if I have a criticism of it. Like, it's almost, Reba, we do know that she's someone that is hustling and wants to stay relevant, so in some ways I'm like, it can almost feel a little gimmicky that everything is so kind of that vibe, but I appreciate that about it more than I dislike it about it. So I'd give this record a 7 out of 10. I think it sounds really good. I also want to mention Rodney Atkins, Caught Up in the Country.
Somewhere where the road ends, out there where the creek bends.
Now this album's really kind of weird. The production choices on it are fascinating. Caught Up in the Country is a song that I don't care for. I know it had like the longest run ever. It spent like 56 weeks on the chart, very slowly climbing into like the teens. It wasn't even a huge hit, but that song is confusing to me because it's saying how country it is, but it's got this like kind of beat underneath it, which doesn't feel very country. And the whole record is full of these kind of tonal, confusing things to me. There's a song on here called So Good that sounds, you know, easy like Sunday morning, but it's really about how sad he is. There's another song on here called Young Man that is a pretty pleasant song about, yeah, you're only young once, man, so go be a young man. And I actually really like the lyrics of it quite a bit. I like that he describes the boy as an acorn that's going to turn into a tree. but it sounds kind of needlessly ominous. It's like you're listening to God's Country by Blake Shelton, but then it's just a song that's like, go be young. So I think some of the tone on here is really confusing, and I definitely think there's way too much voice modulation. And I like Rodney's voice. I like how freaking weird Rodney's voice is. It stands out, and that guy expresses everything in such a goofy manner, and I enjoy listening to it. But I think it's definitely they've messed with it too much. So just production choices are weird. I think it's also interesting that this is the latest cover of Jason Isbell's Cover Me Up. We've now had Morgan Wallen do it. Now Rodney Atkins is doing it. I know there's a third one that I'm missing, but Jason Isbell's Cover Me Up, one of my very favorite songs, and it just keeps getting covered by all these mainstream country guys, which I think is kind of fun. Rodney's is definitely, of the three that I mentioned, my third favorite. I don't love it at all. There's too much going on. It's a simple little song. Let it be a simple little song, but yeah, there wasn't a studio button that they didn't use on this record. So overall, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. And then one bonus album that's not even a country album. This is a whatever else I want to. This is Maddie Poppe's album, Wildflowers.
Don't hit me up past midnight, pretend.
Maddie Poppe won American Idol, not this year, but the one before, and I was just astounded by her. I thought that she had clearly some songwriting chops. She sang a song called Never Let Your Children Grow Up that she'd written that had the greatest hook. It's alcohol and bombs and drugs, don't ever let your children grow up. And she had such an interesting folksy voice, and her song choices were great. And she kind of reminds me a little bit of Fiona Apple, how her voice sounds, and she definitely has a lot of interfacing with the country music world. And I know she dates Caleb Lee Hutchinson, who's an up-and-coming country star. And I would love for Maddie to kind of keep veering toward country music, because I think she's so talented. This is a great pop album, though. It's not claiming to be a country album. It is claiming to be a pop album, and it's definitely a pop album. There's some heavy production on here, but I think there is some excellent songwriting. There's a song she wrote with Tom Douglas, writer of The House That Built Me by Miranda Lambert, called Nothing Good Comes Out of California. That's my favorite lyric on the record, and it's kind of poking fun at this idea that, you know, all the people in California have purple hair and nose rings and they're crazy, but she's hoping, as an Iowa girl, to bring something good out of California. And I think it just feels like such a good country lyric. I love that song. And I also really love the song Take It Out on You, which is about her being on the road and being snippy because she's overtired and misses her regular life, and she ends up kind of taking it out on her man. And I think that song is just an earworm. There's another great song in here called Wildflowers that is a great lyric. It's not my favorite sounding thing because there's so much production going on, but man, she's got a great voice, and I recommend the album. So Wildflowers, I won't review it. I just will say I like it and recommend it. So those are the albums I've listened to lately. I know it's not comprehensive. I'm listening through Caroline Spence's Mint Condition right now, and I'm enjoying it. It's so pleasant to the ear, and she's a Charlottesville gal, so shout out to Charlottesville. But those are the things that I have listened to lately, and would love to know what your thoughts are on some of these albums. So let me know down in the comments down below. Check out the podcast. I have a Patreon now. I don't want to force it on you guys, but people on Patreon get early access to videos, and you get your name at the end of the videos as well. And thank you to the people that are already supporting me there. Like this video, subscribe, and that's it, guys. Until next time. Later.